From the outside, it probably looked like I was living a dream. Marco was the kind of man who could sweep you off your feet without even trying. He'd show up with wine and playlists, dance with me in the kitchen, tell me things that made my heart believe. For a while, I felt like I was exactly where I was supposed to be. But every time I tried to go deeper, to talk about the future or what we were building, he'd slip away, like sand through my fingers. We had all the heat, but none of the roots. I'd ask harmless things, like if he wanted to meet my family or maybe plan a weekend getaway, and he'd just deflect. "Let's not ruin this with pressure," he'd say, brushing my cheek like that made it okay. And part of me wanted to believe him. I told myself he just needed time, that maybe he was scared because it was real. But eventually, the silence after those moments started to feel louder than the words he never said. And yet, I stayed. Not out of weakness, but because I believed love was worth waiting for. I wanted to be the woman who held on when it got complicated, who didn't give up just because something wasn't picture perfect. I kept showing up, even when he didn't ask me to. And maybe, deep down, I was hoping he'd wake up one day and see that I was home. But the cracks started showing in places I couldn't ignore. His phone, for one, always face down, always on silent. He'd step outside to take calls, mumble something about work, and come back like nothing happened. Weekends, he was busy, traveling, or helping a friend. I wanted to trust him, I really did. But that little voice inside me, the one I kept silencing, started to whisper louder. Something didn't feel right, and no matter how much I loved him, I couldn't unfeel it. I started analyzing every interaction, every delay in his responses, every vague excuse. I told myself I was being dramatic, paranoid even. But when someone's behavior makes you feel like a question mark in your own story, that's not love. That's confusion dressed in affection. Still, I held on. I clung to every good moment like it could outweigh the ones that left me spinning. I wasn't ready to believe that maybe I was being strung along. There were nights I lay awake, wondering what I'd done wrong. Maybe I was too emotional. Maybe I expected too much. But deep down, I knew I was asking for the bare minimum: honesty, consistency, effort. And instead, I got charm without depth, affection without commitment. It's wild how someone can hold you so close and still keep you so far away. I started making excuses for him the way women often do when we're in love. He's just busy. He's had a rough past. He'll come around. I was so focused on understanding him, I forgot to notice how little he was trying to understand me. And that's the part that stung the most. I was giving him my full heart, my time, my hopes, and he was giving me half answers and perfect kisses that led nowhere. My friends noticed. A couple of them pulled me aside, asked if I was okay, if I was really happy. I smiled and nodded and defended him like I was protecting something sacred, but I think I knew. Maybe not the whole truth, but enough to feel the weight of it pressing on my chest. Love wasn't supposed to feel like a waiting room. And I had been sitting there, quietly, for far too long. Still, I stayed. I stayed because I believed in us, whatever us even meant to him. I thought that if I loved him hard enough, he'd stop running. That if I was patient, he'd finally choose me in full. But what I didn't know yet was that someone else had already been chosen, and that truth was about to knock on my door in the most unexpected way. It started with a message, just one. A name I hadn't seen in years suddenly blinking on my screen like a ghost wrapped in nostalgia. Clara, my childhood best friend, the girl who knew all my secrets before I even understood them myself. We'd lost touch somewhere between college, careers, and life pulling us in different directions. But in that moment, seeing her name, it was like being 10 again, whispering dreams under blanket forts. Her words were warm, almost too warm, like no time had passed. She said she'd thought of me often, that she missed my heart, whatever that meant. Then came the invitation. She was getting married. To the man who saved me, she wrote. She never said his name, just called him her soulmate. And maybe it was the way she spoke about him, or maybe it was the way she said I had to be there, but something in me softened, I didn't hesitate. I said yes, because how could I not? This was Clara, the girl who once held my hand when my parents were fighting downstairs, the girl who made me believe in soulmates in the first place. I felt honored to be invited into such a sacred moment of her life. And maybe, just maybe, I needed a reminder that love could still be real, that somewhere out there, it still worked. When we met for coffee a week before the wedding, it felt like no time had passed at all. She ran up, arms wide, her smile the same one I remembered from sleepovers and summer bike rides. We hugged so tightly I almost forgot the months I'd spent aching in silence. With Clara, there was always this lightness, like the world was a little less sharp when she was around, and for the first time in a while, I felt genuinely happy. We talked for hours, about old teachers, first crushes, the trouble we used to get into. She told me about her whirlwind romance, how he came into her life when she least expected it, how he saw her in a way no one else ever had. I could see it in her eyes. She believed every word she was saying. There was this glow about her, a certainty I hadn't felt in ages. And even though she never said his name, I didn't press. It didn't feel important at the time. She asked if I'd come early, maybe help her with a few last-minute things. You were always the organized one, she laughed, sipping her cappuccino like nothing in the world could touch her. And I said yes, of course I would. Because that's what friends do. And because deep down, I think I needed to believe that someone out there had found the kind of love I was still hoping for. The week flew by in a blur of dresses, flower samples, and shared laughter. Clara kept saying how lucky she felt, how everything was finally falling into place. I smiled along with her, trying to ignore the ache I still carried quietly beneath my ribs. Being around her reminded me of who I used to be, before all the questions, before all the waiting. It felt good, familiar, safe. The night before the wedding, I stayed up late writing her a note, just a simple letter from one heart to another. I told her how proud I was, how beautiful she looked when she talked about love. I wished her all the joy I hadn't yet found for myself. There was no bitterness in my words, just this strange, aching hope that maybe, through her, I could believe again. I laid out my dress, polished my heels, and tried to quiet the unrest that still lingered in the corners of my mind. I didn't know why I felt it. Just a whisper, a flicker. Like something was watching me from the shadows, waiting for the right moment to change everything. And the truth? I had no idea just how right I was. The morning of the wedding felt almost cinematic. Soft sunlight pouring through my window, the hum of music as I got ready, a sense of peace I hadn't felt in weeks. I wore a pale blue dress Clara always said brought out my eyes. I even curled my hair, not for anyone in particular, but because it felt like a celebration. Today wasn't about me, and honestly, I was relieved. For once, I could just be a witness to someone else's joy. I arrived early, as promised, carrying a small envelope tucked inside my clutch. My note for Clara. A piece of my heart, sealed and ready to be handed over. The venue was breathtaking. White roses climbing up stone arches, golden light spilling across polished floors. Guests mingled and laughed around me, dressed in soft pastels and warm smiles. Everything felt perfect, dreamlike even. Then the music changed. The ceremony was starting. I made my way to my seat, second row on the bride's side, just like Clara had asked. I clutched the envelope in my hands, watching as the doors opened for the groom. And then, I stopped breathing, because the man standing at the end of the aisle, the man about to marry my best friend, was Marco. Time didn't just slow, it collapsed. I couldn't hear the music anymore, couldn't feel the room around me. All I saw was him. Marco, in a tailored suit, smiling like he hadn't spent months pretending I was the only one. Smiling like he hadn't kissed me 2 weeks ago and told me I was everything he didn't deserve. And now, he was marrying my best friend, my Clara, while I sat there with a letter in my lap and betrayal burning behind my eyes. My first instinct was to run. My second was to scream. But I did neither. I smiled. I breathed. I tucked the envelope deeper into my clutch and folded my hands like I was praying. Maybe I was. For strength, for clarity, for the ability to make it through the next 20 minutes without falling apart in front of 100 strangers and the two people who had just shattered the floor beneath me. They didn't see me. Or maybe they did and just didn't care. Either way, I didn't wait to find out. I slipped out before the ceremony ended, walking slowly, deliberately, like every step was holding back a tidal wave. Outside, the sun still shone, and the world kept turning, completely unaware that mine had just cracked wide open. I didn't cry. I thought I would, that I'd crumble in the parking lot or fall apart in the car. But I didn't. My hands were steady on the steering wheel, my face calm in the rearview mirror. The pain wasn't loud. It was sharp and quiet, the kind that settles into your bones before you even realize it's there. I wasn't heartbroken. I was humiliated, lied to, played, and not just by him, by her. They both knew. I replayed every moment, every late response, every canceled weekend, every time Clara said, "He's private," or "You'll love him when you meet him." And I saw it. I saw the truth hiding between the lines I didn't question hard enough. How many times had they laughed behind my back? How many nights did he leave my bed to call her? The silence in my apartment that once felt mysterious now felt cruel. I didn't want closure. I didn't want explanations or apologies or one last conversation over coffee. No, I wanted something more honest, more final. They had written a story without me. I would write the ending, and it wouldn't be whispered. It would be unforgettable. The day after the wedding, I didn't stay in bed. I didn't cry into a pillow or call a friend to vent. I got up, made coffee, and opened a blank folder on my laptop. If they were going to build their life on lies, then I was going to give them one hell of a foundation crack. I started gathering everything, every message, every selfie, every hotel receipt and text he ever sent me with a timestamp. I didn't have to dig deep. The truth was everywhere. He was sloppy, arrogant. I scrolled through our photos, not with sadness, but with precision. Screenshots, exported chats, credit card charges. We'd been together for too long for him to cover his tracks. I even found an email confirmation for a weekend getaway we took, booked the same day Clara posted her engagement ring online. That one I printed. Twice. If I was going to speak, I wouldn't raise my voice. I'd let the facts do it for me. But as I pieced things together, something shifted. I started thinking about Clara. About how, during our coffee date, her eyes had flickered when I said Marco's name without knowing. How she'd changed the subject so quickly. Too quickly. The way she hugged me a little too long when I arrived at the venue. Like she knew. Like she pitied me. And that lit a different kind of fire. The more I thought about it, the clearer it became. Clara wasn't innocent. She hadn't stumbled into love. She'd orchestrated a performance, and I'd been cast as the fool. All those cryptic smiles, the way she never said his name, how she kept me close but not too close. It wasn't coincidence. It was strategy. And if that's how she wanted to play, fine. I know how to play too. I just do it better. I didn't want revenge for the drama. I wanted revenge for the silence. For the way they looked me in the eye and said nothing. For the way they made me question my worth, my sanity, my ability to read a room. I wouldn't scream or throw drinks. That's not my style. I wanted something quiet, devastating, unforgettable. A moment they couldn't control. So I waited. And while I waited, I curated. A photo album. Not a messy one. No rage, no insults, no "you ruined my life" theatrics. Just evidence, dates, images, messages, proof. I called it "While You Were Choosing Your Dress" and printed it like a wedding gift. Glossy cover, elegant font, the kind of thing you'd unwrap with a smile at brunch, surrounded by family and friends. I wanted it to look beautiful. Because what better way to expose a lie than to wrap it like love? The brunch was scheduled for the following Sunday, an intimate post-wedding gathering with friends and family, mimosas, and polite applause. Clara had sent me the invite herself, still pretending we were fine, still smiling through the glass walls she thought I couldn't see through. I RSVP'd yes, without hesitation. And I knew exactly what I was going to wear. Elegance with a little edge. A soft beige dress, Delicate gold jewelry and red lips, not for seduction, but for punctuation. The night before, I wrapped the album like a gift: white paper, ivory ribbon, a handwritten tag that read, "For the bride. Truth is the greatest wedding gift." I placed it in a box lined with tissue, like something precious. Because it was. It was the truth. Untouched, unfiltered, unignorable. I imagined the moment she'd untie that ribbon, expecting pearls or perfume. And instead, a mirror. I didn't tell anyone, not a soul. This wasn't about revenge porn or online drama. I wasn't trying to go viral. I wanted a reckoning, not in the comments, but in the quiet. In the moment a room goes still, and no one can pretend they didn't hear what was just said. That kind of silence, it says everything. And that's what I was after. When I walked into the brunch, I didn't feel nervous. I felt ready, the kind of ready that lives in your spine, not your chest. The room was glowing with soft jazz and polite laughter, glasses clinking, silverware tapping against porcelain. Everyone was dressed in pastels and pearls. It was beautiful, controlled, the perfect setting for a storybook ending, which made it even better for what I was about to do. Clara saw me first. She smiled, warm, radiant, rehearsed. "You look amazing," she said, pulling me in for a hug that felt like holding a knife with silk gloves. Marco was just behind her, sipping champagne, playing the role. His eyes flicked toward me for only a second, but it was enough. There was tension in his jaw. He knew. Something. Maybe not everything, but enough to feel it coming. I handed her the box with a gentle smile. "A little something for you," I said. She tilted her head, charmed, like the cameras might be watching. "You didn't have to," she beamed. I laughed softly. "No, I really did." She placed it on the gift table without opening it right away. That was fine. It would wait. The truth always does, until it absolutely doesn't. It didn't take long. One of Clara's cousins picked up the box, curious, and placed it in her lap. "Open this one," she chirped, mid-sip. Clara smiled, tugged at the ribbon, still glowing like she expected monogrammed towels or a handwritten poem. I stood just behind her, steady, casual, sipping my mimosa like I had no idea what was about to happen. But inside, I was holding every breath like a lit match. She flipped the lid. Tissue paper rustled. The album was the first thing she saw, the title in gold, "While You Were Choosing Your Dress." She frowned, confused, turning the first page. A photo of Marco and me, laughing at a beach cafe, time-stamped. Another, us in bed, his arm draped over my waist. Then screenshots, messages. "Can't wait to see you tonight, mi amor." Her hand stopped turning pages. The room shifted, slowly. Like oxygen had been sucked out through the seams. People leaned in. Whispers started. Her mother gasped audibly. Marco stood frozen, glass halfway to his mouth, all the color draining from his face. Clara looked up at me, eyes wide, mouth slightly open, like she couldn't decide whether to cry or rage. I didn't blink. I raised my glass, calm as ever, and said, "You lied. You cheated. I just decided not to keep your secrets for you." The silence that followed was delicious. Not cruel, just complete. No one moved, no one laughed. It was the kind of stillness that only happens when masks fall all at once. Clara's hands trembled as she closed the album, pressing it against her chest like she could somehow erase the pages inside. Marco tried to speak, but the words never came. His mouth opened, then shut, like a man drowning in his own story. I didn't need to say more. I wasn't there to beg for dignity. I'd already claimed it. I turned, heels soft against the marble floor, and walked out with every eye following me. Not one of them looked at Clara. Not one reached for Marco. It was like, in one breath, the entire room had recalibrated. The bride and groom no longer mattered. The truth had changed the lighting in that room, and I had become the spotlight. Outside, the air was crisp and clean. I took one long, steady breath and exhaled everything I'd been carrying. There was no triumph in it, no gloating, just release. I wasn't the broken girl anymore, waiting for someone to choose her. I was the woman who chose herself, in full view of everyone who ever underestimated her. And I didn't look back. It's strange how quickly pain becomes perspective. One day, you're drowning in it. The next, it's just part of the story, like a scar you no longer hide. In the weeks that followed the brunch, I didn't hear from Marco. Not a word. Clara sent a message once. I didn't know. I didn't respond. Maybe she was telling the truth. Maybe not. Either way, it didn't matter. What mattered was that I was done being anyone's second option. I poured myself into something I'd been putting off for years. My dream. My design studio. I built it from scratch, late nights and quiet mornings, fueled by the fire they left behind. And slowly it began to grow. Clients came, projects came, confidence came. I started to feel like myself again, not the woman waiting for a text, but the woman making bold, beautiful things with her own two hands. And for the first time in a long time, I felt free. Not just from them, but from the version of me that accepted less than she deserved. I traveled. I laughed louder. I surrounded myself with people who didn't flinch at honesty, people who celebrated the truth, even when it was messy. And somewhere along the way, I realized I wasn't healing from heartbreak. I was stepping into something bigger than I ever imagined. People still ask me what happened between me and that man. Some say they heard things, about a messy brunch, a scandal, a marriage that cracked before the ink dried. I just smile. Not because I'm hiding anything, but because I don't need to explain anymore. Let them wonder. Let the story float in whispers. The truth did its job. I didn't burn bridges. I built a new one, and I walked across it alone. I don't check their social media. I don't Google their names. What for? They've become background noise in a life that's finally playing my song. Rumor has it the marriage barely made it 6 months. That trust issues surfaced. That distance grew. I'm not surprised. A relationship born in betrayal rarely survives the light. But I didn't need to see their ending to feel complete. My ending came the moment I chose myself in front of everyone who expected me to shrink. There's a quiet kind of power in peace, in waking up without anxiety, in creating something beautiful just because you can. I've learned that healing doesn't always roar. Sometimes it just whispers, keep going. And I did. I still do. One honest breath at a time. On my studio's website, tucked beneath the portfolio and testimonials, there's an About Me page. It's simple, clean. But at the bottom, in small italic letters, I left a message. Just for me, really. It says, sometimes the truth doesn't hurt, it heals. People think it's a branding statement. It's not. It's a reminder. That telling the truth, my truth, saved me when love tried to erase me. And I've learned something else along the way. I was never too much. My expectations weren't the problem. My heart wasn't a burden. The wrong people just weren't big enough to hold it. Now, I give it carefully, but not fearfully. I know what I bring, and I know what I'll never settle for again. Not silence, not crumbs, not love that only loves me when it's convenient. If you asked me who I am now, I'd say this. I'm the woman who walked away without begging, the woman who let the truth speak, then built a life with both hands free. And if that makes me too much, so be it. They were simply never enough.